Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, according to 60 Minutes, Maryland ranks 48th of all the states getting the COVID vaccine out. Are electric vehicles really eco-friendly? Mark Elrich announces he's running for re-election as county executive. And one Montgomery County resident's frustration with vaccine rollout strikes a chord in Bethesda Beat. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by attorney Ron Little, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, and Bethesda Beat contributor, Lauren Billings. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. According to Reshma Sujani, founder and CEO of the organization Girls Who Code, in an interview with CNBC, every mother I know is at their breaking point. Because when schools closed, we became teachers, nannies, and support folks, so the entire system is broken. This level of frustration is also being felt locally, and it prompted one Montgomery County resident to express her opinion in Bethesda Magazine, which captured the support of many. Joining us today is Lauren Billings, the Bethesda Beat contributor. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
And at the start of the show, I will say that we are so pleased to have you because of your dad. And we're going to give your dad, Jim Shalleck, lots of props because Jim was a regular contributor on our program for 21 years, and we're glad you're following in his footsteps.
Oh, thank you very much. He sends his best.
Well, thank you. Lauren, your op-ed was one of the most widely read articles published by Bethesda Beat. And why do you think so many people related to your story?
You know, Maryland was one of the first states to enter into lockdown almost exactly a year ago. And yet here we are 12 months into the pandemic, and Maryland is ranking at the bottom for the vaccination rollout. Our schools are still closed. Our restaurants are suffering, our businesses are suffering, and we have no cohesive reopening plan. We are the only county that is continuing to sacrifice our children's mental and academic health for political power plays, and we've got to get vaccines into arms, and we have to support our local businesses. It is truly time for our leaders to step up.
I think what was really compelling about your article was the description that you had of your dad's experience in trying to get a vaccine. Could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the county-run vaccination registration and rollout has been one of the most complicated and poorly managed systems across the country. My 74-year-old dad, who's a very good friend of yours, has a pre-existing heart condition. He was on 6 different waiting lists, only to be denied a vaccination at Quince Orchard High School in his own county after receiving the state-authorized vaccination time slot. So the lack of a coordinated county and state strategy has been so disappointing. The mixed messages amongst our leaders and the fact that our parents have been staring at computer screens for endless hours trying to get an opening, then to only be denied, has truly been infuriating.
And where did he finally get a vaccination?
He ended up driving to Prince George's County for his first vaccination dose, where he can get an opening at midnight online through one of the pharmacies. And, you know, it's really no surprise at all that Maryland is ranking almost at the bottom when it comes to getting vaccines into arms. It has been so mismanaged.
Well, we're going to, in our next segment, we're going to talk about the 60 Minutes report that aired that talked about how frustrating it is here in Maryland, but also in Montgomery County. And your story is really a very compelling one because it really touches all of us. And I think that's why it was so widely read in Bethesda magazines. When I clicked on the article, I saw how many reads that it had garnered. I was truly amazed. Have you had any response from any other people on this?
You know, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and I think it's largely due to the fact that so many people can relate to these frustrations. Even these mass vaccination sites that are now popping up here and there at Six Flags. The wait times are extraordinary. People can't even get through to anyone to schedule an appointment. They arrive after driving, 45 to 60 minutes to their vaccination time slot, only to be turned away. I don't know what is happening here, but we are not doing a good job of rolling this out.
Well, Lauren, I am hopeful. I think we all are, that if we show a little patience, that the system will improve, and we'll all be vaccinated soon. President Biden has certainly announced that his goal is to have all adults vaccinated by the end of May, and I'm sure that's a goal that we all can hope gets here sooner rather than later. I want to thank you for being on the show today and sharing your story, and give our best wishes to your dad when you see him next. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. So Lauren's story is one that we all can relate to, but also we can relate to the frustration. Now, being featured on the news program 60 Minutes is generally not a good thing. In last week's feature on the vaccine rollout, reporter Bill Whitaker pointed out in a discussion with Montgomery County Health Officer Dr. Travis Scales that Maryland was ranked almost dead last, 48th actually, in getting the vaccine distributed. So, Ron, what you just heard a very compelling story. Why has the rollout been so complicated?
Well, I think it's a failure of the state and the local governments to communicate with one another. If Dr. Gales is right and we're getting 4,500 doses per week, clearly that's insufficient for the population of Montgomery County, but it's also hampered by the fact that up until yesterday, there was no plan for us to have a mass vaccination site. And I believe Montgomery College is on the list of one of the places being considered to provide that kind of service. I think that we really do need to ramp up access to mass sites so that we can get more vaccinations in arms, so that we can quell some of the frustration that people are feeling, because this has been a very lengthy and difficult process.
So, part of it, and the announcement about the Germantown campus of Montgomery College being used as a max vaccination site is welcomed. I think it's going to be a county-run site and not a state-run site. So that's a little bit of a different flavor than what we've seen across the state. But how good a job is Montgomery County doing for its residents? There's when you log on to their website, they just went into offering the vaccine for phase 1C individuals. There is a long list of preferred groups that have priority. So what kind of a job has the county done on this?
Well, I think their job has been less than desirable. I think the county has not yet figured out a way to meet the needs where they are, so that people aren't spending hours clicking through websites trying to find a place to get a vaccine. And we're talking about older citizens of the county who may not be as tech savvy as some of our younger members. We need to figure out ways to get these vaccines into communities where the people are, so that we can kind of eliminate some of this frustration that people are feeling with the technological aspects of the vaccine rollout.
I want to go to Mark, but then I got a follow-up question for you, Ron. Mark, the Hogan administration announced the opening of 2 other mass vaccination for a total of 6 in the state, but hasn't helped here and open up one here in Montgomery County, which, as Ron mentioned, is our most populous county in the state. What's the story on that?
Well, I would clearly focus on sort of 2 pieces. There's opening up the mass facilities, which is helpful and useful, but one of the primary sources of frustration has been the back-end process, if you will, when you contact, when you sign up, when you get notified, how that works. And from what I can see, one of the issues we've had is, although we knew the vaccines were coming, in the middle of the process, both Maryland but other jurisdictions as well did a kind of in the middle of sort of changed pilots in the middle of the process, and gave the local departments of health a lot more responsibility. Challenge there is they're not really they're not really geared up to do the kind of mass invitations, to have the kind of tech requirements, and their systems were not in place to do that. I will tell you, this is a problem in other jurisdictions as well, but it was clearly a mistake to be able to not be better prepared to have a sign-up process going into this.
Well, even now with the number of mass vaccination sites, they still don't have a single pre-registration form for the state of Maryland, which I mean, I was able to get a vaccination appointment at the Waldorf mass vaccination state, but it was because I went to each site individually. I mean, it seems like there's still a technological flaw there.
And full disclosure, I got my vaccine in Virginia. I have my own stories about that, but I'm still waiting to get my second shot. But they had their own snafus that were.
Ron, I want to go back to you on the Baltimore Sun ran a featured article about the failure of getting the vaccine into as they call racial equity, that it's not meeting those goals. Why is it so hard to meet those goals that the state wants to achieve?
Well, I think part of the problem is the technological aspect, and the other part of it is time. I don't think it has anything to do with the reluctance of people of color to take the vaccine. I think it's a matter of understanding where the facilities are, how to get appointments, and to do it in a way that's not disruptive to already stringent time constraints that people are operating with. You have kids that you're trying to educate, you have other family responsibilities. There are a million things going on, and to be expected to spend 6 hours in line to get an inoculation is a lot for most families in the county and in the state.
Yeah, no, I had set times every day that I would check, all of the different websites and make the phone calls, and eventually one of them clicked. So I'm very happy. And I hope it's a challenge that the state overcomes, because I think we have a population of 7 million people. We want to have everyone that's eligible for being vaccinated protected. So I want to thank you all for being here. When we come back from this short break, are electric vehicles really eco-friendly? The county's making a big investment that they are. Stay tuned for more of 21 this week when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. Continuing with the resolution that declared a climate emergency in 2017, the county and the county public school system has approved the largest procurement of electric school buses. Ron, the county has agreed to purchase 316 electric school buses, effectively replacing its diesel engine buses over the next 4 years. Is this the right move for the county?
Well, I think when we consider the impact on the environment, I think it is absolutely the best thing to do. And I know that the time that it's going to take for the electric vehicles to be really eco-friendly is considerably longer. We have to look at how long it's taken us to do the damage to the environment that we've been doing with the carbon emissions that essentially have been destroying, the atmosphere and making it difficult for us to do other things in our lives. I think the other part of it is that one thing that we don't consider is that, our old diesel school buses, when these kids, they're waiting to get on bus and the bus pulls up, they're really at mouth and eye level inhaling these fumes as they get on school buses. And I think that's, a health consideration that I think is worth, us doing by using electric vehicles. It will take us time. And as one of my personal trainers used to say, Ron, it took you 20 years to gain all of that fat that you've gained. You can't expect it to disappear in a year. So we have to consider that it's going to take some time and be willing to use that time to do what we need to do.
Well, Ron, you can do what I do. Don't go to a personal trainer, and you won't hear those negative thoughts put in your head. All right, so Mark, now automobile manufacturers are running to offer electric vehicles, but not discussed is whether the electric vehicles accomplish their goal of being eco-friendly. I mean, Ron's talking about emissions, but there's really a larger carbon footprint issue that goes into this. And a report by the World Economic Forum says that it takes 9 years for an electric vehicle to be greener than a diesel car. I mean, that's really the lifespan of most vehicles. So, and it points out the pollution caused by electric vehicles goes beyond the measurement of carbon emissions. So are we being sold a bill of goods? Is this the wisest move by the county?
Some of our decisions are really more faith-based as opposed to scientific or looking at the numbers. And the dirty secret, if you will, for use of renewables is the problem with batteries. Now, the assumption is made that the battery technology will improve and get better over a period of time, and that will provide the reliability that's necessary to be able to rely on renewables more in the future. That said, because we don't know precisely what the battery technology that eventually will be able to have and hopefully have, the life cycle consequences, the life cycle costs of battery, which have all sorts of metals and all sorts of problems, environmental problems associated with it, are not adequately factored into the decision as to whether to go in sort of the electric route or to rely on fossil fuels. Listen, I'm all for, Ron, being more environmentally friendly, but I'd go back. Let's look at the actual science. Let's look at the numbers to be able to make a decision as to what the best path forward at a particular point in time is.
Well, I think what doesn't get discussed is as you discussed about the batteries, but there's certainly a human cost as to how the cobalt is being mined that is put into the batteries, both in the Congo and in China. There's talks of child labor being forced to mine this, as well as the disposal problem of disposing their batteries. So I'm all in favor of electric vehicles if they truly do what they say to do, but I think we should be aware and cognizant of all the costs that are associated with it. So it's a big investment. The county has an admirable goal. I hope we can meet it in the future. Now moving on to our last segment. In response to rumors that several county council members, particularly Hans Reimer and Craig Rice, are considering a run for the county executive, the current county occupant of the office, County Executive Mark Elrich, announced in a text message that he was going to seek a second term in office. Now, Mark, Mr. Elrich narrowly won his primary election, and in his first 2 years have been kind of tumultuous. So what do you make of his decision?
I bet you he is hoping that it is as crowded a field as it was in 2018. I think it's fair to say that the division was really one of the keys to his rather narrow victory in the Democratic primary. So I think he's probably hoping that, Blair and, anyway, all the various candidates get in the race so that he can come through in the divided field. As you say, he's been mixed at the very most generous in his performance so far.
Well, I think, if you look at that election and just analyze it, I think Rose Krasnow's entry into the election really hurt David Blair because I think she siphoned off votes that otherwise would have gone to him. Of course, there was a lot of cannibalization of all of the votes there, and Mark had his solid core, which came out for him. So hats off to him for winning that election. We'll see what happens in the next election. But Ron, the past county executive, Isaiah Leggett, adroitly navigated the political shoals of Montgomery County during not only his 3 terms in office, but his many years on the county council. And I'm not sure Mr. Elrich is doing it quite as well. What do you think?
Well, I think personally, Ike is an exceptional human being. And I think that never lost sight was his desire to really see the county thrive and to do well in every aspect of services that's being provided. I think what's going to be the truth teller for Mr. Elrich is whether or not we can recover quickly from the COVID fallout. That means businesses getting back to a status of thriving, kids being back in school, reestablishment of the priorities that we had and that he articulated during his initial campaign. I'm sure his hope is that by the time primaries come around, everyone will have forgotten about COVID and they'll just look at his next 2 years of work versus the tumultuous first 2 years.
Well, I think the real litmus test is going to be taxes, because if taxes start going up, and the county has spent a lot of funds in grant money trying to support businesses and individuals to get through this COVID crisis, we're going to see. I think that's what motivates people more than anything else. So you're right. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. When we come back from this short break, parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Mark Uncapher.
Well, we were just talking about spending in Montgomery County, and one of the challenges Montgomery County faces is what to do with the tunnel underneath in Bethesda for the Purple Line. Now, as we all know, this was along the Crescent Trail, and the original plan was to try and build a new tunnel at a cost of $55 million to be able to accommodate that and the Purple Line. And now Mark Elrich is suggesting that we do one track, that we only let one trolley in at a time. Listen, $55 million for a 1/6 of a mile tunnel is absolutely crazy. We made a decision about the Crescent Trail that we were going to turn it over essentially to the Purple Line. Let's not spend the money, but let's have double tracking.
Thank you, Mark. Ron Little, your parting shot.
Well, I have two this week. So first is a shout out to the Montgomery County Libraries for their series this month celebrating Women's History Month. It's a celebration of historic, local, and national leaders that have really paved the way and done their part to help this country and Montgomery County achieve the status that it has. And I'd also like to shout out all of the educators who have collected and decided that they needed to volunteer their time to provide free tutoring services for students in need. I think it's an overwhelmingly beautiful gesture and in recognition of the fact that there is a need for some kids to have one-on-one attention to achieve in the subject areas where they might be lacking. So shout out to all the educators and everyone contributing their piece for Women's History Month.
Thanks so much. Well, I'm a flag waver, and I love the United States of America, and I love stories that talk about American greatness. And this week, I don't know if you saw it, but Cortland Malloy in the Washington Post ran a wonderful story about the incoming Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Don Graves. And who talked about the fact that Mr. Graves is going to become Deputy Secretary of Commerce in a building that was located on a livery stable that his 4 times great-grandparents, who had been slaves themselves, Polly and Lynch Wormley, had owned and occupied and ran their business from. And they also talk in the story about the fact that Francis Scott Key, the same Francis Scott Key who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, whose anniversary was 2 days ago, spoke up on behalf of the Lynches, of the Wormleys, to allow them to, and said that they weren't escaped slaves, but free men. This is the kind of great American story that shows the greatness of America and the potential of America. And I thought it was fabulous. I hope everyone gets a chance to read it. I want to thank the audience, the panel, for being here today. I want to thank Lauren Billings for coming as a guest panelist and talking about her op-ed in Bethesda Beat. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.
More people live in Montgomery County than in Wyoming, Vermont, North Dakota, and even DC. We are a big county with a lot of stories. Subscribe to our channel and don't miss any of the important news happening in our community.